So here we are in a more residential area of Japan. We're still in Sapporo, Sapporo being the biggest city in Hokkaido, but this area has a lot more houses and a lot fewer restaurants. Now, one other thing about Japan is that because there's so much population and so little space in many areas, a lot of people choose to live in apartments such as this one. Now, unlike apartments in the West, these apartments you actually have to buy. So some of these cost over $100,000, and you buy one of these apartments and it becomes yours. So you still have to obey some community rules, but essentially the whole place is yours to sell off later if you want to modify the inside, as long as you don't do anything that goes against the community standards. So let's go for a walk through the residential neighborhood. Right now we are about a 5-minute walk from the subway station, and we're going to continue moving further out. The further out you go from the subways here, the more rural things get. Nice home gardens, beautiful. It's very, very unusual for someone in Japan to have a lawn with grass. The most you'll probably see are people who have gardens such as the one we saw, or some flowers. We have a Japanese maple, and here's another one of those apartments that you actually buy rather than renting. Most people opt for that over a house, unless you have an exorbitant amount of money, because buying your own house, at least in Sapporo, is going to be about $200,000 to $500,000 at a minimum, and then going up from there into the millions of dollars. It's a very overcast day here. Now these look like some rentable apartment complexes. Ones that have very small balconies or no balconies at all. Here we have a construction sign. Japan is all about construction. They build up and tear down houses and apartments every few years. It's rare to see an apartment or a house built before 1970. And 1970, even then, that is extremely old. Here's a closer look at some of those apartments that you can buy. They're quite spacious. They're quite nice. And in Japan, it is more rare to do your laundry inside. You want to hang your laundry outside. So a lot of people have their laundry hung outside. Not today, because it's been off and on rainy. But an interesting point. If you're thinking about moving to Japan, just keep in mind, you will have to hang your clothes outside. Or invest in a very expensive dryer, but because apartments tend to be a lot smaller here, I mean, it's your choice. Give up the space, or just hang your stuff outside like everybody else. Now in Japan, if you see these yellow license plates, a yellow license plate, such as the one you just saw, these mean it's a K car. A K car is a smaller car. It has a smaller engine on it. And so you end up paying a lot less in road tax because it is fuel efficient, it is smaller. Now, regular cars with regular engines have these white license plates. White license plate just means you have to pay more in road taxes every year. But they're also more powerful and can handle more. So if you're planning on traveling, things like going across country, going on trips, I do not recommend K cars. Some pretty big houses out here, actually. That's pretty huge. Japanese license plates are also only 4 numbers long. Before the numbers, you have a hiragana symbol like so or ka or shi, followed by the 4 numbers. It's not super common for people to choose their own license plates, mainly because you can't really write anything like you can in the United States. you could get funny license plates and write memes and stuff. But here, since you can only put down numbers, I mean, some people do. You can get cool custom license plates with your favorite numbers, but it's a little less I can't even say it. Personalizable than elsewhere. So here we have an advertisement for firefighters, the local firefighters of the city. I mean, I'm really not over exaggerating when I say everything is anime in Japan. Even the paramedics advertisements. The paramedics are anime. Everything is anime. Now here are some Japanese cherry blossoms. Or, oh no, they're the sister to the Japanese cherry blossoms. So these ones are a little more resilient. You can see the leaves are a little bit thicker and a little bit darker pink. But still, absolutely beautiful. The petals will still fall. You can pretend you are in an anime. See the scattered petals. Beautiful. Even though we are in a city, the further we get from the subway, the more nature we'll start to see too. We just had a rain this morning, so everything is looking particularly green and nice. Sidewalks can be pretty uneven sometimes. A big factor in this is one, earthquakes. Earthquakes are still relatively common in Japan. But also the Hokkaido winters are really, really harsh. The ice and snow are pretty bad here. So it ends up breaking up the roads and sidewalks really fast. And that's why there's always construction going on in residential areas. You might hear about Japan being very advanced with the rubber roads and stuff, but that's still very uncommon. It exists in certain areas, but for the most part, not so much. Some more beautiful flowers. The city does care a lot about keeping things nice and clean. You have to pay a residence tax in addition to like the regular taxes, which you would pay overseas. You also pay a residence tax here, and that goes towards, well, one, fixing the sidewalks, which needs to be done, but also the upkeep of like plants and flowers by the roadside, public parks, which are extremely common in Japan. Every neighborhood has its own public park for children to play in, which I find very neat and interesting. Parking, on the other hand, is extremely limited in Japan just because of the lack of space. So a lot of houses or apartments don't even have parking spots. So what you would end up doing in this case is public parking. So you'll find small lots like this all over the city. And this one, it looks like it has 6 available spots. So for a spot like that, you'd probably end up paying about $80 to $100 a month just for the parking spot, which I found interesting, but also annoying in Japan with car ownership. It's just one of those extra fees. But it also encourages people to use public transportation. The subway system here is very robust. The train station is also very good if you happen to live near one of the train stations. So a lot of people just opt to take public transportation instead of taking their own car. Oh, another beautiful side lot garden. I bet the bees are happy here. I just read an article this morning about Osaka. There's a big department store there. And what they did is they put, I forget how many, 500,000 bees. They put 500,000 bees on top of this building in order to well, I guess pollinate the flowers and spread the importance of bees to our ecosystem. And they're gonna take all the honey and make it into like local products for the city to try to bring some tourism into the city. And I think that's a really neat and interesting idea, just because rooftops are like wasted space, if we're being honest. I remember back in New York, there was always projects to do rooftop gardening and rooftop farming, because there's just, New York City is kind of a food desert, so you want to try to grow food there. And so now Osaka's trying to do like rooftop beekeeping. And I love that. I hope that catches on in more areas. One, because honey is awesome. Two, because bees are super important to our ecosystem. And three, just because it's a cute idea. So we're coming up to a bigger road now. We're sort of near another subway station, but we're almost to the end of the line. So after we pass by this final subway station, we're gonna be outside subway lines. So the apartments get a lot bigger, the houses get a lot bigger, things get more rural, but it's nice. It's rural in a nice way. So the public trash cans in Japan, pretty much every trash can looks like that for one reason, and that is crows. Can't see any right now, but crows are vicious, and they will get into your trash and they will strew your trash everywhere. It is awful. And so we need to use these big like metal honkin' trash cans, and even sometimes that's not enough. They'll work together to kind of lift the lid. And that sounds crazy, but it's true. They're so scary. And just dirty in general. I mean, I love crows as a concept, but at least living in Japan where the crows are bigger, if you Google search jungle crows, that's the type of crows we have here in Japan. They are huge. They're like ravens. They are powerful and fast and scary. If we see any more trash cans, I'll point them out. Some of them have very heavy-duty netting. My own trash can is so heavy that sometimes it's hard to lift it up. Me being a relatively fit adult. So here, on the left, is a beautiful apartment complex. You can see all those hooks on the balconies. Those are for laundry poles, for hanging laundry. We can see one person has left their pole attached there. Now, another interesting thing about Japanese apartments is a lot of them have these ladders. And I didn't quite understand what they were for when I first moved here, because all of these ladders are pretty far up the building. Like, you can't latch onto that. That's probably a good 10 feet off the ground. Here, we can see it better here. So how do you get to that ladder? Well, that ladder, those are like emergency ladders in case of flooding. Because Japan is such an island and tsunamis happen, they build all these ladders. You can see another one in the background. Interesting stuff. Okay, so here's another trash can. You see? It's metal. It's got netting. It's got blue netting on top of netting. And this is all because of crows. Like, literally all because of crows. It's insane. Now here is an example of a public park. These parks are all over Japan. They're very simple. They're the closest you can find to like a traditional lawn in Japan, because a lot of them have grass. Usually just some monkey bars, a swing set, and a slide, and that's it. But you will very often find mothers there with their children during the day. And it's just nice to be able to go to a place like that even though you're in a city. Like New York City and where else? Madrid. These kinds of places do have public parks, but they're centralized, so that you have Central Park. You have the one big park in Madrid, In Japan, it's more like scattered small parks like that make it more accessible for children who are by themselves, maybe on their way home from school, but also mothers. Again, public transportation is such a big thing. Not everybody has their own car. So to be able to walk to a park like that, one, it's very good exercise, but two, it's just convenient for people. And Japan is all about convenience. So here on the left, let's zoom for a bit. So that is the hiragana yu. That is a bathhouse. If you ever see the yu symbol, yu literally stands for hot water. So it is not an onsen. It is not a natural hot spring. Yu is just a bathhouse that uses hot water. They probably treat the water with nice smelling things. They are very, very nice. They have been gorgeous. I've been to some amazing bathhouses, but now you know the difference. Unless it says onsen, unless it says that it's a natural hot spring, it's probably just a bathhouse. Many smaller residential neighborhoods prefer having bathhouses over onsen because, well, it doesn't bring in too much tourism and they're easy to fill because it's just a nice thing to do after work or at the end of the day for people who live in the neighborhood, just to go relax with a hot bath. Ooh, a very nice house here. You can kind of see they have their own garden behind the gate. Oh, it's so gorgeous. So nice. Okay, well, I think that's enough of our walk here in the residential neighborhood. Thanks for joining me. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you again next time. Take care.